Thank you for joining me today. There's some things that weigh so heavy on your heart, and this is one that's been weighing on me. I've heard it spoken about in several sermons recently, and I've written about it recently, but I've been waiting for the right time to record it. And I finally realized that the time when you have to get all cleaned up and do this right, if you wait too long, it just doesn't happen. So here I am as I get ready to go out and work on this project I'm working on. I thought I would do this quickly. So I'm going to talk about being scared to death. When I was younger, my dad took me to many old cemeteries as he researched genealogy. And at one cemetery, there was a tomb of a young girl, a family member. I believe she was 8. So I asked my great aunt, how did she die? And she said, well, she was scared to death. Really? She said, yeah, it was a practical joke. Somebody had stuffed a snake and scared her to death. So I've always had in the back of my mind that you can't really be scared to death. There must have been something else wrong. But the past several years have proven me wrong. One interesting parallel as I get started in this story is that she was scared to death by a snake. Keep in mind, often medical associations use the symbol of the snake and the pole as their logo. So medicine couldn't scare someone to death, could they? Well, think about it. There were so many COVID-related deaths, and many of them were not from the disease. They were secondary deaths, such as elderly who, quite honestly, suffered from failure to thrive. There were teens and children who lost hope and viewed suicide as a way out. There were people who were afraid to seek treatment for serious illnesses. And there were people who just gave up. The censorship and the fact that people couldn't have honest conversations about the science, or as some have pointed out, the lack therein, magnified this into a dread terror. One mature friend said he was told that he and his wife should sleep in separate beds and use different areas of the house. His response was, that would be worse than death. There's a lot of things that are worse than death, and living in fear is one of them. The biggest COVID deaths, however, were not physical. They were emotional and societal, such as civility and kindness. The world became a very angry place. Why? Well, there's a couple obvious reasons and hundreds of secondary reasons. The biggest reason is that we're social herd creatures. When social was curtailed, it was a very effective method of control, turned people against each other, and many became antisocial. I've seen some very strong men and women crumble in fear after the social isolation they experienced. Another is that anger is a secondary emotion. It has a root. The fear-mongering, the manipulation, often used by the media, creates a fearful society. One of the biggest side effects of fear is anger, from feeling out of control. And there's many flip sides to that. One, if you're codependent, I identify with that one. You have this obsession to control people around you, control the environment, or overschedule, so there's no quiet time to have to sit and face those fears, or engaging in mind-numbing activities such as drugs, alcohol, TV, and yes, even video games. Unfortunately, burying fear, burying anger only exacerbates it. There is a cure, though, for the antisocial attitudes which have sprung up. There's a cure for your personal anger and for personal fears. In Genesis 3:15, God is cursing the serpent. and says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and her offspring, and he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Are we not the heel being bruised? Anytime the Satan attacks God's beloved, Jesus is bruised again. But we know who wins that battle. And ultimately, evil will be crushed under Jesus' heel. Perfect love casts out fear. The problem is that none of us can love perfectly. However, Christ in and through us can. We can choose to live in Christ or die in fear. Scared to death is an option. How about inspired to live? Which will you choose going forward? Think about it this week. God bless you.